Have you ever thought about what it means to be truly good? The Bible gives us a beautiful picture in the book of Galatians. It talks about something called the fruit of the Spirit. Now, this isn't a fruit you can eat like an apple or a banana. Instead, it's a list of 9 wonderful qualities that grow inside a person when the Holy Spirit, the Spirit of God, is alive in their heart. And the very first and most important of these fruits is love. But what does this love look like today in our busy modern world? It's not just a feeling, it's an action. It's the small, often unseen choices we make every single day. It's the choice to value, care for, and seek the best for others, no matter who they are or what they have done. It is a reflection of God's love, shown in practical, real-world ways. The Apostle Paul describes this love beautifully. First he says, love is patient. Think about the morning traffic jam. Patience is choosing not to honk, letting someone merge, and understanding that everyone is just trying to get somewhere. It's waiting in a long grocery line without a single sigh, offering a quiet moment of grace in a rushed world. Love is also kind. This is love in action. It's the person who pays for the coffee for the stranger behind them, just to brighten their day. It's holding the door open or offering a genuine compliment to a coworker who looks like they're having a tough time. These small acts create ripples of positivity. Furthermore, Paul tells us that love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. In our world of social media, this is a powerful reminder. It's celebrating a friend's success without a hint of jealousy. It's sharing your own achievements with humility. It's choosing not to post a rude comment online, and instead engaging in respectful conversation, even when you disagree. It's about making others feel seen and valued, not small. We've talked about love, the first fruit of the Spirit. Now let's look at the second, peace. The world can feel loud and chaotic, but what about our own little worlds, like our schools and playgrounds? This is where the Spirit's peace can truly shine. The peace God gives isn't just about being quiet. It's about making things whole, fair, and friendly. It's a special kind of calm that comes from knowing you are loved and secure. This divine peace shows up in our lives in very real ways, especially at school. First, it gives us peace inside ourselves. Maybe you feel nervous before a big test, or sad because you got an answer wrong. The peace of the Spirit is like a quiet whisper that says, it's okay. You are more than this one moment. It's the calm that helps you take a deep breath and try again instead of getting upset. It's the strength to lose a game on the playground and still be happy for the person who won, because your own value doesn't come from winning. Second, this inner peace helps us bring peace to others. The playground can be a place of so much joy, but it can also be a place of arguments and hurt feelings. Being a peacemaker means you don't add to the noise. When you see 2 friends arguing over a toy, you don't pick a side. Instead, you might help them figure out a way to share or take turns. You have the courage to build a bridge between them. Most importantly, peace is about inclusion. It's about noticing the person sitting all alone on the bench while everyone else is playing. The fruit of peace prompts you to walk over and say, "Hey, want to play with us?" It's choosing to stand up for someone who is being treated unkindly, not by fighting, but by showing them friendship. You become a safe person, a source of calm in someone else's storm. This is the peace of God in action, making our schools and playgrounds a better place for everyone. We have walked through the gardens of love and peace. Now we come to the third fruit of the Spirit, a quality that is planted and tended every single day in our schools. Patience. In a world that wants everything to be fast, the classroom is a special place that teaches us the quiet power of waiting. This patience, born of the Spirit, is a gift that helps us grow, not just in knowledge, but in character. First, the Spirit helps us to be patient with others. Think of a teacher with a student who is struggling to understand a math problem or read a new word. Patience isn't about giving them the answer. It's about giving them time. It's the calm presence that says, "I am here with you. Take your time, you can do this." It's also the patience we show our classmates. It's waiting your turn to speak instead of shouting out. It's listening to someone's idea, even if it's different from yours. It's choosing not to get annoyed when someone accidentally bumps into you or makes a mistake. This kind of patience turns a classroom from a race into a team. Second, the Spirit teaches us to be patient with ourselves. This is so important when you are learning. Nobody gets everything right on the first try. You will misspell a word, get a math problem wrong, or struggle with a new skill. Impatience says, "I'm not good at this, I give up." But spiritual patience is a gentle, steady voice inside that says, "It's okay. Let's try again." It's the strength to erase your mistake and redo the problem. It is the understanding that learning is a journey with many steps, and every mistake is just a step on the path. Ultimately, patience is about trusting the process. Every book you read, every problem you solve, every new thing you learn is like a seed being planted. It takes time for that seed to grow into a strong tree of knowledge. Patience is the faith that if you keep trying, keep watering, and keep learning, you will grow. It's the foundation for a peaceful and loving classroom where everyone has the chance to flourish. We have walked the paths of love, felt the calm of peace, and understood the strength of patience. Now we arrive at the fourth fruit of the Spirit, one that sparkles and sings, joy. It's a word we use often, but spiritual joy is very different from regular happiness. Happiness is wonderful, but it often depends on what's happening to us. We're happy when we get a gift, happy when the sun is shining, happy when our team wins. But what happens when the gift breaks, when it rains, or when our team loses? Happiness can disappear as quickly as it comes. Spiritual joy, however, is a gift from God that grows on the inside, and it doesn't depend on outside circumstances. It's a deep, lasting gladness that comes from knowing you are loved by God, that you belong to Him, and that He is in control. It's like the difference between a puddle and a deep well. A puddle is formed by the rain and dries up in the sun. Happiness is like that puddle, but a well is fed by a deep, underground spring that never runs dry. Joy is like that well. Even when the world around you is dry and difficult, you have a source of refreshment deep within your spirit. This is why the Apostle Paul could write about joy while he was in prison. He wasn't happy about being in chains, but his joy was unshakable because it was rooted in his relationship with God, not his freedom. This is a radical idea. It means we can experience joy even when we are sad. We can have joy even when we are facing challenges or difficulties. It is the quiet confidence that God is with us and that His love is greater than any problem we face. This joy isn't something we have to fake. It's a fruit that grows naturally when we stay connected to God. And it becomes our strength. It gives us a positive and hopeful outlook. It overflows into gratitude, into songs of praise, and into a radiant life that draws others to its light. It's the deep, bubbling gladness of the soul that knows it is safe in the hands of God. We have journeyed through love, peace, patience, and joy. Now we arrive at the fifth fruit of the Spirit, the one that puts all the others into practice, kindness. Kindness isn't just about being polite or having good manners. It's much deeper. It is God's own goodness flowing through us to touch the lives of others. It's what love looks like when it gets up and does something. To understand this, Jesus told a story about a man who was hurt and the people who passed him by. But one person, a stranger, stopped to help. This story doesn't just happen in ancient times. It happens every day on our playgrounds and in our schools. Imagine a child sitting all alone on the buddy bench, watching everyone else have fun. Other kids might see them and feel a little bad, but they are busy with their game, so they turn away. They are the ones who pass by on the other side. But then another child sees the lonely one, and the Holy Spirit stirs something in their heart. This is the moment of choice. Kindness is choosing to stop your game. It's choosing to walk over to that bench. It's choosing to say, "Hey, what's your name?" or "Want to join us?" That action, that choice to move toward someone's loneliness is the fruit of kindness. It's being God's answer to someone else's quiet prayer. You are being the Good Samaritan right there on the playground. This kindness shows up in countless small ways at school. It's holding the door open for someone whose hands are full. It's picking up a pencil for someone who dropped it. It's seeing a classmate who is frustrated with their work and saying, "You can do it, don't give up." These small acts may seem simple, but they are powerful. They are sparks of divine light in someone's day. Kindness is the gentle strength that makes our schools and playgrounds feel safe, warm, and loving, a place where everyone belongs. After exploring the gentle action of kindness, we arrive at its strong foundation, the sixth fruit of the Spirit, goodness. If kindness is how we treat others, goodness is about the integrity of our own heart. And there is no more important place to practice goodness than in our own homes. It's here, within the family, that we build the character that we will carry into the world. Goodness at home is about choosing honesty, especially when it's hard. Imagine two children are playing, and one of them accidentally breaks a favorite toy. The fear is real. The temptation is to lie, to hide it, or to blame a brother or sister. That's the easy way. But the fruit of goodness is a quiet strength that rises up and chooses the harder, better path. It's the courage to say, "I did it, I'm sorry." This is the heart of goodness, taking responsibility for our actions. And when a parent responds not with anger but with gratitude for the honesty, they are nurturing that fruit. They are building a home where the truth is safe. This goodness also means living with integrity when no one else is looking. It's when you get too much change at the store and you walk back in to return it. It's choosing to speak about others with respect, even within the privacy of your own walls. It's about being the same person at home that you are in public. Goodness is a reflection of God's own holiness. It's not about being perfect because we all make mistakes. It's about having a heart that is so aligned with God that it consistently wants to choose what is right, true, and honorable. It is the solid rock on which a strong, loving, and trustworthy family is built. We have walked the paths of love, peace, patience, joy, kindness, and goodness. Now we arrive at the seventh fruit of the Spirit, the one that gives all the others: endurance, faithfulness. To be faithful means to be reliable, trustworthy, and true to your word. Is the quality that makes someone a rock you can depend on, a true and loyal friend. This isn't about having faith in God, though that is where it begins. This is about a character that becomes full of faith, making us dependable people. It starts in the small things. It's the child who promises to feed their pet and does it every single day without being reminded. It's the friend who says, "I'll be there for you," and they always are. Faithfulness is the practice of keeping our promises, both big and small, day in and day out. The Bible gives us a powerful example in a man named Daniel. He had a lifelong habit of praying to God 3 times a day. When a wicked law was passed that made praying to God a crime punishable by death, Daniel didn't change his routine. He didn't hide. He simply went to his room, opened his window as always, and prayed. He was faithful to God, even when it was dangerous. His commitment was not based on his feelings or his circumstances. It was based on his relationship with God. This is the kind of steadfast character the Holy Spirit wants to build in us. Why? Because we serve a faithful God. Just as the sun rises every morning, God's promises are true and his love never fails. He is always faithful to us. As we draw closer to him, his faithfulness grows in us. It becomes the glue that holds our good intentions together over time. It turns a moment of kindness into a habit of compassion. It turns a feeling of love into a lifelong commitment. Faithfulness is the quiet strength that makes us people God can use and people others can trust. From the steadfast rock of faithfulness, we now step into the quiet sanctuary of the 8th fruit of the Spirit: gentleness. In a world that often admires what is loud, forceful, and aggressive, gentleness can be misunderstood. It is often mistaken for weakness, timidity, or being a pushover. But biblical gentleness is the exact opposite. It is power under perfect control. It is the immense strength of a great stallion, trained to respond to the softest touch. It is the careful tenderness of a father holding his newborn baby. Gentleness is not the absence of strength, but the choice not to use that strength to harm, crush, or demand our own way. The most perfect picture of this is Jesus. In the upper room, on the night before he would die, he did something shocking. He, their Lord and teacher, knelt down and began to wash his disciples' dusty, dirty feet. When he came to Peter, Peter's pride flared up and he refused. But Jesus didn't get angry. He didn't force him. He responded with gentle authority, correcting him with grace. This is gentleness in action, having all the power and right to demand respect, but choosing instead to humble yourself in loving service. The Holy Spirit grows this fruit in our hearts to change how we handle each other. It's the soft answer that turns away anger. It's the patience you show when someone is learning slowly. It's the care you take with someone's feelings when you have to deliver difficult news. It is the humility to admit when you are wrong without making excuses. Gentleness is a divine tenderness. It is realizing that everyone around you is fighting a hard battle and choosing to treat them with the same care and grace that God shows to you. We have now reached our destination, the final and crowning fruit of the Holy Spirit, self-control. Think of this fruit not just as the last on the list, but as the strong branch that holds all the others. For what good is love if it's not guided by control? What peace can last if it's shattered by an impulse? Self-control is the God-given ability to govern ourselves, our thoughts, our words, and our actions, aligning our will with His. Our world often preaches a message of instant gratification. If it feels good, do it. But the Spirit teaches a higher freedom, the freedom from our own appetites. Self-control isn't about leading a boring life of no. It is about having the strength to say no to the lesser things, so we can give a powerful yes to the things that truly matter. It is the Christian who says no to sin to say yes to God. The ultimate test of this fruit is seen in the life of Joseph in Egypt. He rose to a position of total trust in his master's house. But then came the test. Potiphar's wife invited him to betray that trust. He was alone, powerful, and tempted daily. But his response was firm. He saw the choice for what it was, not a secret pleasure, but a great wickedness and sin against God. His self-control wasn't just about resisting her, it was about honoring his God. So when she physically grabbed him, he made a powerful choice. He didn't hesitate, he ran. He chose integrity over impulse. This is the same spirit that works in us today. Self-control is the quiet power to hold your tongue when you're angry, the discipline to be generous when you feel selfish, and the resolve to keep a pure mind. This isn't something we can achieve by gritting our teeth. It is a fruit. It grows naturally from a life connected to God. As we give the Holy Spirit more control of our lives, He gives us more control over ourselves. And so, our journey through the 9 fruits of the Spirit is complete. Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and the vital strength of self-control. I hope this series has nourished your spirit. If it has been a blessing, and you want to be part of our community as we explore more truths together, I'd be so grateful if you would subscribe to the channel. It's a simple click for you, but it means the world to us and helps us continue this work. Thank you for walking this path with me.